This is the one in which, to the surprise of exactly no one, a Republican politician has seemingly defrauded voters with a series of major lies. It's not just Trump, folks. It's the whole damn party leadership. So here we are. It's December. It's the holiday season. Family and friends are congregating and celebrating and reflecting on what was hopefully a relatively pleasant 2022. Now, for me personally, one of the highlights of this year was the fact that Republicans completely screwed the pooch in the November midterms. That prophesied red wave or red tsunami never manifested. It was more of a red spritz or pinkish spritz. But I guess to give the devil his due, technically, the Republican Party did secure a victory. They did flip the House of Representatives from Democratic control to Republican control. But as we've talked about on this channel, it's turning to be a nightmare so far for the House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who's the Republican frontrunner to be Speaker of the House. But right now, he is still critically short of the votes and support that he needs to become Speaker, because you still have to be voted, you still have to be elected, technically, Speaker when the new Congress convenes. And right now, he is coming up short, which is great, because he's a douche, and he deserves all the stress that this will create. But, again, the Republicans did secure a victory here, and in that victory were a series of sub-victories that the GOP has made quite a bit of press about. And I want to talk about one of them. One of them was the fact that the Republican Party managed to flip a Democratic congressional seat in New York. New York being a big blue populist liberal bastion. It and California are considered the leftist counterweights to Texas, and is one of the reasons why the Democratic Party, despite numerous systemic disadvantages in this country, is able to compete with the GOP, right? Because of states like California and New York. But Republicans flipped a seat, and they've been touting that as a major victory. And a second part of that victory is, for them anyway, the way they're trying to spin it, is the fact that the Republican who won that seat is openly gay. In fact, the first openly gay Republican congressperson. So Republicans are cynically bragging about this. They're saying, hey, look, we flipped a seat in a blue state because we're so awesome, and the guy who won us the seat is openly gay, signaling, that the Republican Party is not so behind the times when it comes to social progress, and they're actually much more moderate than the, heathen Democrats like to pretend. Now, this is bullshit, obviously, right? The Republican Party collectively is still relatively homophobic, misogynistic, transphobic, and we see it time and time again in terms of the loudest voices in their caucus, the most influential voices in their caucus, and very often the way they vote, right? Republicans supported, the Dobbs decision, which stripped reproductive rights from women across the country. They opposed the Respect for Marriage Act, which President Biden just signed into law, which codified gay marriage protections, right? So the GOP is hardly moderating. It's hardly socially progressive. This is just a bad faith, hypocritical attempt to cash in on that in New York. But the plot thickens with this particular congressman because, according to recent reporting, he may have completely fabricated most of his resume. Okay, so the person in question is George Santos. He's a Republican Congressman-elect. He clinched victory on Long Island last month, but large portions of his resume, which he made central to his campaign, have been called into question according to a comprehensive New York Times report. And it tackles basically three major areas of Santos's biography and points out major discrepancies. Number one, his education. Number two, his employment. Number three, his history of philanthropy. And so I want to address some of these. So first, let's go to employment because it's the first in the article. Santos said that he worked for Goldman Sachs and Citigroup, right? That was a major part of his appeal. But according to the New York Times, after reviewing public documents and court filings, they couldn't find any evidence that he ever worked for Citigroup or Goldman Sachs. So they said they had no record of Santos ever working there, both of these firms. And then Axios tried to corroborate it, and it said a spokesperson for Citigroup was not able to confirm to Axios that Santos was ever employed with the bank. Same thing with Goldman Sachs when Axios reached out to confirm the New York Times reporting. They confirmed they had no record of Santos's employment. So those are two major discrepancies in his employment history. So that's a big lie this man has been seemingly caught in. But it gets better. His education. So according to his biography, according to the Republican National Committee, Santos attended Barrett College and New York University. Barrett College, where Santos said he graduated, told Axios it checked school records for someone with his name and date of birth and found no record of his attendance. Same thing for New York University. New York University also said it found no record of someone with Santos's name and date of birth in the institution. So now we have a major discrepancy with his employment and now education. But it still gets better, because he also claimed a history of philanthropy with respect to pets, with animals. So he said he ran a 501c3 nonprofit animal rescue organization called Friends of Pets United for 5 years. But when the New York Times and Axios tried to look into the IRS filings for a nonprofit, they didn't find any listing for a charity by that name. When they checked ProPublica's Nonprofit Explorer, which collects IRS filings between 2011 and 2018, they still found no record of this Friends of Pets United. So we have major discrepancies with his employment, his education, and now his history of philanthropy. When people tried to reach out to Santos about this, they would not comment. Okay, but his attorney did. Okay, and this is where it gets truly profoundly hilarious. So Joe Murray, an attorney for Santos, said that George Santos represents the kind of progress that the left is so threatened by: a gay Latino immigrant, a Republican who won a Biden district in overwhelming fashion by showing everyday voters that there is a better option than the broken promises and failed policies of the Democratic Party. So we're going to stop right there. Notice how he doesn't address any of the allegations. He doesn't provide any evidence to the contrary. He doesn't corroborate any of Santos's additional claims. He just appeals to culture war bullshit, basically trying to dangle car keys in front of the public like we're children easily distracted, which I guess unfortunately some of us are. But this statement continues. After 4 years in the public eye and on the verge of being sworn in as a member of the Republican-led 118th Congress, the New York Times launches this shotgun blast of attacks. It's no surprise that Congressman-elect Santos has enemies at the New York Times who are attempting to smear his good names with these defamatory allegations. But again, no evidence for Santos's initial claims about his education, his employment, his philanthropy, no attempts to refute it, just culture war nonsense. And then if you need a cherry on top of this shit sundae, here it is. The biography on his campaign's website was significantly revised between October 21st and 27th to remove references to Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, the family firm in the history of philanthropy, the nonprofit. But because it's the internet, you can go back on the Wayback Machine and see earlier iterations of web pages, and it's all there. So we have these major discrepancies. There is no evidence to try to refute them or try to, prove the initial claim, and actually evidence that you're trying to conceal these things. So it sure looks like this Republican, lied about his resume and his background to defraud voters. And what's interesting about that is, so often we hear that the Republican Party is the party of family values and honesty and integrity and personal responsibility and good, strong American ethics and apple pie and baseball and all the shit that they clearly don't believe in. We've covered on this channel, bigger channels have covered this before, the mainstream news has covered this. The Republican Party is a nexus of dishonesty and hypocrisy and personal foibles. They're the party that says, hey, abortion should be outlawed while engaging in abortions left, right, and center. They're the party that says that, marriage is sacrosanct between a man and woman, and yet they have, a history of divorce 2 miles long. They say that they're the party of, protecting children, even though, the Republican Party and conservatives, have been credibly accused and indicted and convicted of sex crimes against children and women. You can look at goppredators.wordpress.com for a long list of public records where this is the case. It's just a web of hypocrisy. Now, you can say what you want about the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is far from perfect from a political or moral standpoint. There are many shortcomings that we have, but in terms of the two parties, it's pretty easy to see which one is morally, intellectually superior, and as superior as a matter of public policy. So anyway, this is just, it's interesting. We'll see where the story goes. Maybe, Santos is sitting on a trove of evidence which corroborates his claims and his resume, but I doubt it. Hey, you. Yeah, you. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, and I hope that you did, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe. Also, my link tree is in the description below, so if you have a sec, go ahead and share the love on all my social media accounts. Also, if you want to express an opinion, eternal devotion, or undying contempt, go ahead and leave a comment because we're always looking for feedback. And on that note, I look forward to pondering politics and pop culture again with you very soon.